Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is a special request from a backer for the
Hi,
grain
everyone.
merchant.
Thanks for being here.
Let's
This is
turn
a
this
special
off.
request from.
Here we go. A special request from a backer for the grain merchant, which is an Argolicus mystery that is now on Kickstarter. So thanks everyone for being here. And what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to keep it pretty brief, is talk a little bit about how I go about doing research. And then I will do a short reading from The Grain Merchant. So I'm really excited to be here. Um, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding program, and it's set up so that every backer receives rewards, and it runs for a certain period of time. And in this case, it's 30 days, and we're about halfway through. So I'm really excited about the project. I'm going to have some really interesting backers, and I get some great notes from them. So that's pretty exciting. This is my first crowdfunding project, so I'm like every moment, I don't know if this is going to work or it's really exciting, and the backers are so enthusiastic. So I hope if you're just meeting me for the first time that you'll take a look at the Kickstarter project for the grain merchant. My name is Zara Altair, and I backed the project. Lots of rewards, so I encourage you to go and take a look and back the project. Anyway, let's get started with talking about research. And it's research from an amazing time in history that is also just sort of, oops, I have to do this the right way here. So what I'm going to do, bear with me, is share my screen. And here we go to share. And I'm going to share some slides. So I'm going to be talking about background research for Italy in the early 6th century, for the grain merchant, and also for all the other, there are 4 other Argolicus mysteries. So that's where we are this evening. And we're going to talk about the world of Argolicus, who is the main character in the book. He is what you call the detective. And his world was long ago. These stories are set in 512 CE AD in southern Italy, at the time when King Theodoric, an Ostrogoth, ruled Italy, and the capital of Italy was Ravenna, which is up in the north. So I want to talk about how research works. This is one of the places I visited in Ravenna dell'Angolo. It's a little cafe bar, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So let's talk about how research works. I first started researching this period online, and I went to some Italian history sites, and there's one that goes year by year by year by year through Italian history. Is pretty amazing, little short, brief things. So research for a novel really starts with broad background knowledge. I knew absolutely nothing about Italy in the time of the Ostrogoths when I started. The other place I went was libraries, and and then I did make a trip to Italy and Ravenna, so feet on the ground, and that's really amazing. That's just really amazing. And then connections with scholars. When I started doing my research, before I even went to Italy, I connected with the scholars period who are all just amazingly enthusiastic about these stories. So that was super encouraging because I didn't want to, I don't know, I was a little hesitant, like, gosh, here's this person who's not an historian who is, writing stories about this period. So, and this is the library and one of several libraries in Ravenna where I went and did research because not being a native, of course, I couldn't check any books out. So I had to read in the library. So going to Ravenna, that was really a wonderful adventure in and of itself. But the focus of the trip, this is the main square in Ravenna. The focus of the trip was really to meet people at the University of Bologna, which has a campus in Ravenna, and to meet with scholars there and get a lot of questions answered, and some of them not answered. So we're still at the broad beginning, me just learning. But this, I wanted to show you this picture because this was such a wonderful place to stay. It was B&B, and they had 3 rooms, a big garden out in back, which you can see from the window. But what I loved about this was the rose growing up through the shutters. That was my place of rest because I was out walking every day, and it was just lovely. So I thought I'd share that rose creeping up because that was kind of fun. So how I approached being in Ravenna is I did go to all the tourist places, and if you ever go to Ravenna, you need to see the mosaic of the 3 wise men. It's just photographs give you no idea. All of this background is gold. It just shimmers with light. It's just truly amazing. So I went there, and then in the 6th century, there were no bicycles, there were no cars. So everything was walking. So I took my map and I mapped out the times walking to all the different places. I did do a lot of walking, um, but just kind of getting a sense of how long it took to get from one place to another um, on foot. And so that was one of the other things I did. I just walked. I walked the streets. I walked the streets for stories. Um, and then taking a look at the modern Ravenna, then I looked at, and this took some research in libraries. I think I found this map in Southern California at the University of California at La Jolla. And at the time of the stories, the river actually ran through town. This is now a main street. It's all covered over. But at that time, the river ran through town, and the main transport of goods came up the river. There was over here a port called Classe, and ships came in there, and then goods went up the river on small boats and barges up to Ravenna to deliver the goods. And actually, one of the questions I asked the professors was, well, where did they store all this stuff? And they kind of shook their heads and didn't know. Nobody knows. Okay, that question's going to get answered in a minute. And then, I got I took a photo of the map and printed it out, and then made my own notes on the map. So I had a better, no, go back. Whoops, I am having trouble going back. I'm sorry. How do I go back in this mode? It's not letting me go back. So PowerPoint is not letting me go back. Oh, I just hate this stuff. Okay, PowerPoint, view. Do not enter all tabs. Window. And if anybody knows how to get me back to where we were, that would be great. So PowerPoint. See if I escape. There we go. Okay, let's go all the way back to the map. And then slideshow, play from current slide. Okay, so a lot of notes so I could get a sense of where things were at the time and where they were on my modern map and what the distances were, walking distances. And the King's Palace was down here. So also in Italy, I took a lot of notes to myself with my camera because remember in the libraries, I couldn't check books out. And then when I went to visit museums and things, I also took notes to myself with a camera of some of the exhibits. So a lot of just stuff, you know. And then while I was there, the professors were so enthusiastic. They gave me 30 kilos of books. They were just so sweet. I was totally touched. And of course I got my own books too, like People and Identity in Ostrogoth, Italy. So there's I did a lot of reading in a lot of different languages. And then I had tons of notes. Each one of these notebooks is filled with notes. This is how I remember things, is writing them down. Because reading without writing doesn't really help me work. Okay, so then I have all this background material and I make up a story. And I just wanted to, with this photo, when I saw this photo on, this is also the serendipity of things. I was looking around. I do a lot of looking online, and I saw this image of a river that's near Scolace, where the story takes place. And I went, oh my gosh, this is just the perfect place for something dire to happen. So this is the scene of the murder in The Grain Merchant. But the thing is, when I write a story, it's not over yet. Because as I go through the story and I hit big blanks of knowledge, big or little, it doesn't matter. And then I have to go out and find the details. And for The Grain Merchant, for example, Argalicus joins the town council, and I went, oh my gosh, what was the town council like? Different than the Senate in Rome. And this is also how research work. I went online and I couldn't find very much, not much at all. And then in a Spanish language publication, I found an article written in English by a professor emeritus at Waterloo in Canada. And I wrote to him, and he helped me sort out what was known about the town council at the time and the things where I had. He also was very sweet. He pointed out the places where I had a lot of leeway in making things up as I went. So I'm very excited about this book. It's been a lot of fun putting it together. It's much longer than the other Argolicus mysteries, so I get to play with themes more. So, of course, for research, there's a lot more to know. So, and I mentioned the other books, the Argolicus mysteries, and the Romaner, the Used Virgin, the Peach Widow, and the Vellum Scribe. So those are all fun to write, and thank you very much for being here. Click to exit, stop sharing, go back to there. Okay, so that's a little bit about my research process, and it's ongoing. It is ongoing. One more thing, I wanted to tell you a little story. In the slideshow, I showed you the Cafe dell'Angolo. And I'd been wandering around Ravenna one day, and I was really tired, and it was late in the afternoon, and I went into this little bar, and I called my daughter. She lives in England, and I said, "Oh, look, they have spritz at this little bar. It reminds me of Ravenna. I'm so homesick." And then the bartender was just amazing. He was like, "Oh, why are you here?" And we talked in my broken Italian, and I told him what I was doing, and he fixed me a spritz, and I sat outside on the street and just kind of watched the world go by, um, and I left. And a couple of days later, I was out walking again, and I went, "Oh, that was such a nice place. I'm going to go back." And I went back. This is what it's like in Italy. This is just amazing. If you've ever been to the same Starbucks 15 times and nobody ever remembers your name, this is the opposite. I go back 2 days later, and the bartender greets me, and he says, "Oh, and he reaches under the bar and he pulls out this magazine and says, "You might be interested in this." And hands me a magazine, and it's about the history of bars in Ravenna, and dell'Angolo was was in the magazine. But as I was reading the magazine, sipping my spritz in the afternoon in Ravenna, as I was reading the magazine, there was another magazine about 18th century cafes, just the same as in England. Everybody went and drank coffee and gossiped and talked about philosophy, etc. And but the thing was, this place was in a cave underground, right next to where the river ran. And I went, "Oh my gosh, where did they keep the stores that came up the river to Ravenna from Class A?" And as far as I was concerned, this magazine article about the cave underground in Ravenna solved my problem. So that's one of the serendipitous things that happens when your feet on the ground, because the professors had no idea. That's just the way it works. And I had another serendipitous moment when I said, "Well, what did they eat?" And I got the, we don't know. And so the next day I had an appointment with a different professor, and right across from the university is a bookstore, and so I went in the bookstore to just kind of browse around while I'm waiting to be timely for my appointment. And there on a table were all these books, and one of the books was Italian title, but the title was At the Table with the Ostrogoths, and I'm like, oh, what? Food. So this is tidy, by the way. I wanted to mention that one of the backer rewards for the grain merchant is the principal's table, and that is recipes from the 6th century. So you may be interested in checking that out. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. And with that, I'm going to end the broadcast, but I wanted to tell you that you can always ask me questions on Kickstarter, no problem. Just ask me a question and I'm happy to answer. And 2 days from now, on Sunday, I'm having a live stream on Kickstarter, which is Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions about research, be sure to join me then. All right, thanks for being here, and go check out The Grain Merchant on Kickstarter.